Hello and welcome to our panel. My name is Yousif,
And my name is Jan.
and we're thrilled to have you here as part of Nots Anglistów, the fourth edition of the Night of English Scholars. Today, we'd like to tell you a little bit about Patrick Marber's drama, Closer. We'll focus on the fragile relationships between the four characters, Dan, Alice, Anna, and Larry. We're going to show how they are shaped by the language they use. We're going to highlight Marber's linguistic choices, often blunt, uncompromising, even vulgar, and we're going to show how he utilizes and plays with the maxims of conversation, also known as Gricean maxims.
But before we get to specific examples of effective and ineffective communication, first we'll walk you through the plot of the play. So if you haven't read Closer, watch out. Spoilers ahead. Closer begins as a conventional boy meets girl story, but quickly transitions into boy meets another girl who meets another boy kind of narrative. It takes place in the span of over 4.5 years, sometime in the 1990s. Boy, or rather man number one, is Dan, a middle-aged guy from the suburbs, a failed writer earning a living writing obituaries. He meets Alice, a young girl from the town working as a stripper, with whom he immediately falls in love. But then he meets Anna, an established photographer, a woman more his age, and instantly loses his head for her. Sadly, the feeling is not mutual. Out of spite, Dan sets Anna up for a blind date with a random guy from the internet, Larry. Unfortunately for Dan, Anna and Larry hit it off straight away. Our man number two is a dirty-minded dermatologist that doesn't need much convincing. And later, he too has a change of heart upon meeting Alice.
As you might imagine, their relationships get increasingly more difficult to navigate. We've got two couples, Dan and Alice, Larry and Anna, who cross-exchanged partners. Then Dan gets together with Anna and Larry with Alice, and later they swap back again. See, this cycle of breakups and makeups keeps the audience at the edge of their seats, as any subsequent conversations are loaded with innuendo, double entendre, sarcasm, half-truths, or plain lies.
See, sometimes we can identify a text that's snappy and enjoy the dialogue, but cannot really put our finger on the linguistic construction that makes it so interesting. A well-crafted exchange might leave room for interpretation, played with implied meaning, or strategically withhold details to create tension or intrigue. These subtle choices keep us hooked, even if we can't immediately identify why the dialogue feels sharp and memorable.
See, I think now it's a good time to segue into the topic of effective communication. A 20th century British philosopher of language, Paul Grice, established the so-called cooperative principle, a norm governing all cooperative interactions among humans. According to this, every time you are engaged in a conversation, you should, and I quote, make your contribution such as it is required at the stage at which it occurs by the accepted purpose or direction of the talk exchange in which you are engaged.
This simply means say what's needed at the right time to keep the conversation going smoothly and on track with its purpose. For example, if you're giving directions, stick to helpful and clear instructions instead of talking about unrelated things. It's about contributing in a way that matches the flow and goal of the conversation.
Right. And there are four maxims to look out for. The first one, the quantity maxim. This is about balance. So you should share as much information as the conversation requires, but don't overwhelm with too much or leave things too vague.
Yes, the quality maxim, on the other hand, focuses on honesty. Say things you believe to be true and avoid sharing anything you know to be false or don't have enough evidence to support.
Yeah. And then you have the relation maxim. It's simple. You just have to stay relevant. Keep your contributions connected to the topic at hand and don't digress too much.
Now, the manner maxim is all about clarity. Speak in a way that's straightforward, concise, and organized, so your message is easy to follow and understand. Together, these guidelines help ensure conversations are meaningful, efficient, and cooperative.
Now, on to practical examples of how these maxims function. Imagine the following conversation. You have person A. The question is, what did you do this weekend?
Person B answers, I went hiking on Saturday and visited my family on Sunday.
Notice here, person B provides enough detail to answer the question without adding unnecessary information.
Now, imagine a different answer. I went hiking on Saturday at Lakeview Trail for about 3 hours with my friend Sarah. Then we grabbed lunch at this new vegan place. And on Sunday, I visited my family, spent the whole day there, played with my nephew, on and on.
See, here, person B is providing excessive detail, making the response overly long.
Okay, what about this? What did you do this weekend? Stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this response is just too brief and vague. It's lacking a lot of detail that probably be relevant to person A's curiosity.
Okay, now on to the other maxim. Person A asks, do you know if it's going to rain today?
Person B answers, yes, I checked the weather forecast and there's a 70% chance of rain.
Perfect. Person B provides truthful information based on a reliable source.
Now, if person B was to respond with, no, it's going to be completely sunny all day, even if they haven't checked or actually believe the rain is likely.
Then B gives an answer that is either knowingly false or unsupported by evidence, misleading A.
What about an answer such as, it's going to rain so hard, you'll need a boat to get anywhere?
Yeah, that's okay, but exaggerated. Humorous, but it fails to provide a clear and reliable answer, still potentially misleading your interlocutor.
Okay, on to the next maxim. Here, person A asks a question, do you have a pen I could borrow?
Here we go.
Right, this response is directly relevant to person A's question.
Now, what if I answer, I really should clean out my backpack one of these days?
Right, then this response has nothing to do with the request for a pen. So it makes the interaction confusing or even frustrating, I would say.
Did you see the game last night?
This is completely shifting the conversation to an unrelated topic. So you're just ignoring person A's request entirely.
Okay, and the last one, the mana maxim. Imagine person A saying, how do I get to the train station?
And person B would answer, go straight for 2 blocks, then turn right, and you'll see it on your left.
Yeah, your response is clear, concise, and easy to follow.
What if the answer was to be, well, you can take the route past the park or the one by the big red building, but there's also that path through the alley, though it might be closed.
I'm sorry, but this answer is overly complex and unclear, so it's very hard for me to understand the best route.
Okay, one last. What if I was to say, okay, so first you want to walk in that direction where those trees are, then when you get to the second or maybe third intersection, you'll see this big shop. You might want to go left there, but sometimes I go straight, then you should eventually find it.
Let me stop you right there. This is disorganized and confusing, so it's very difficult for me to get to the train station easily.
Okay, right. Now that we have that covered, let's take a look at examples straight from closer. Uh, this is a scene between Alice and Dan when they first meet and fall in love. Dan is taking care of Alice in the hospital after a car accident she's had. Alice says, thank you for scraping me off the road.
Dan answers, my pleasure.
Unite.
You damsel, why didn't you look?
I never look where I'm going.
We stood at the lights. I looked into your eyes, and then you stepped into the road.
Then what?
You were lying on the ground. You focused on me. You said, hello, stranger.
What a slut.
I noticed your leg was cut.
Did you notice my legs?
Quite possibly.
See here, the maxim of relation, or rather, more specifically, relevance, is violated.
Yeah, Alice's response, "What a slut," end quote, appears unrelated to Dan's statement. Dan is recounting a specific memory or event involving Alice, and her reply does not directly acknowledge, clarify, or build on what Dan said. Instead, Alice's comment is abrupt, seemingly judgmental, and disconnected from the flow of conversation. This violation may be intentional to divert the conversation or show Alice's emotional tension or sarcasm, but it still violates relevance in the literal sense. Now, the next scene is between the other couple, Larry and Anna. Larry's just returned home from a business trip, but both are suspecting the other of having had an affair. Larry, why are you dressed if you've just had a bath?
Anna, we needed some milk.
Right. You okay?
Uh-huh. You?
Yeah.
Right. See here, the maxim of relation, again, is violated. Here, Anna's response, and I quote, "We needed some milk," end of quote, does not directly address Larry's question about why she is dressed after a bath. And this connection between needing milk and being dressed is left unstated. This forces Larry, well, and the listener to infer the relationship between the two. So while the statement may hint at why she is dressed, that is, she went to get milk, Anna does not explicitly make this connection clear. And this makes, or rather leads to a perceived irrelevance.
Also, the maxim of manner is also violated, and its response is indirect and lacks clarity. So while it might eventually make sense if the context is understood, it is ambiguous and leaves the listener to infer why getting milk necessitated being dressed after a bath. The lack of explicitness or a clear casual link between the bath, being dressed, and getting milk makes the conversation less cooperative.
Exactly. And here, both participants adhere to the maxim of quantity. So they both provided just enough information to progress the conversation without being overly verbose. For example, right, you okay, and the uh-huh, you are concise and appropriate for the context.
Ultimately, closer leaves us with a deeper appreciation for the power of language in shaping our interactions, and a reminder of how easily it can unravel when misused. If you're interested in analyzing aspects of effective communication more thoroughly, we recommend taking a look at the topic of politeness.
Politeness in general means being tactful, considerate, and respectful. In linguistics, it revolves around the concept of face, which is someone's public self-image. We all have a social and emotional sense of self, and politeness involves showing awareness and consideration to another person's space.
Now, when we say or do something that threatens someone's self-image, it's called a face-threatening act. For example, if I say, "Give me that paper," it assumes authority or power over the other person, which can be threatening to their face. On the other hand, using an indirect approach like, "Could you pass me that paper?" reduces the threat and becomes what we call a face-saving act.
Right, exactly. We all have two types of face, negative face and positive face. Negative face is our need to be independent and free from imposition. For instance, if I say, I'm sorry to bother you, but here I'm respecting your negative face. Positive face, on the other hand, is our need to feel connected and belong. So we'd say something like, let's do this together. And this would show solidarity and addresses positive face.
All right. If you've enjoyed our presentation, give Closer a close read and consider the film adaptation as well. The movie features a stellar ensemble cast, including
Natalie Portman,
Julia Roberts,
Jude Law,
and Clive Owen, all delivering exceptional performances.
right. Thank you for listening, everyone.
And till next time.